J'appelle à présent Javier Díaz-Giménez à prendre place au pupitre pour nous parler de la France, l'Italie et l'Espagne, austérité ou croissance.
Good morning to everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to say just a few words about how countries grow, how countries don't grow, and I'm going to compare the scenarios for Spain, for Italy, and for France. So let's start talking about growth. I'm going to show you a couple of slides that show the current recessions and the recoveries in these three countries. The blue line is for France, and there, I mean, you can see things that are similar and things that are different in all these three cases. First of all, what I have done here is this is levels of GDP. It's not growth rates. So I have normalized those levels at 100 in 2008. And there you can see, of course, all three coincide. Then you see the recessions in these three countries. Italy's was the most severe. GDP fell by 7% on levels. It's real GDP, of course. The second one was the Spanish recession, 5% in levels, and then the French one. And then, of course, after that, we've seen this Keynesian reaction. I will be talking about this more in a little bit in these three countries, more intense in some than others. The ECB playing its passive role as we had expected it to, and you see the clear recovery of the French economy, which is now, even though it's stalling in the last part, 2011 and 2012, has almost recovered the pre-recession level, and you see the double dip both in Italy a little bit steeper, and then in Spain. So this is what has happened in this last part since 2008 and 2012. Let's take the same idea now, and instead of normalizing at 2008, let's move it back when the European Union was when the euro area, when the economic union, monetary union was started, and let's see how these three countries have done in the last 13 to 15 years. So if we move it back now, and now I normalize at 2000, here you see three different growth processes. They share the cycle. So from 2000 to 2008, you see three growing economies, again at different rates. Clearly, the Spanish story is the story of a booming housing market. Lots of houses were built. They were accounted for in GDP accounts, and then recession and of course slowdown. In fact, this 15, 16 points of real growth accumulated by Spain in those 8 years are probably the second fastest growth period in Spanish history. So if we ask the question, has the euro been good for Spain or France? I mean, for Italy, clearly, it's the issue is more doubtful, because between 2000 and 2013, as you can see there, Italy has only managed to accumulate a really weak growth of 4 percentage points. So basically, what we should take from here is that this recession, which is severe, which is complicated, and its exit is problematic at this point of time. If you put it in perspective, you see countries that are growing like Europe grows, which unfortunately is slowly and in these last few quarters with much difficulty. So the scenarios, if we now move it forward, and I'm using here again levels, and again I'm normalizing at 2008, and I'm looking at the IMF scenarios. There you see a very different story. You see France growing. The IMF today is predicting 7 points by 2017. So France is going to recover. Again, not at a very impressive pace, but it will grow sizably. And there you see Spain and Italy with almost a lost decade. And when countries stop growing for such a long time, clearly that creates problems for their citizens. Without growth, There's no increase in welfare. New households, especially young people, find it very hard to start their lives and to progress. And clearly, you know, when these countries plus all the others have formed part of the European project, clearly, if this growth scenario does happen, it's hard to see how Europe can stay together in this with these large differences and with these 10 years wasted that really affect almost an entire generation of people. So that's what has happened. So the question is how can we grow? And in economics we have essentially, I guess, two, maybe three camps that discuss this with different ideas of about what can be done to foster growth. On the first camp, we have you know, this story of the Keynesian story. You know, let's increase government spending. Let's cut taxes, and the economy will grow. This is, you know, Paul Krugman, other guys. They know, you know, he knows. Paul, if you ask Paul, he knows how to stop a recession. You know, you read the book. I'm not recommending it by any means, but it's there. Maybe Paul Krugman also can cure cancer, and he will tell us maybe in his next publication. But of course, this Keynesian idea is pretty obvious in the short run. If you increase government expenditure or if you cut taxes, there will be growth showing up in national income and product accounts. There will be a direct, immediate impact. We've seen that. We've seen how that has helped get the world out of the 2008, 2009 recession. But the issue is what happens next. So here's where you need Keynesian magic. Keynesian magic is when the public sector stops spending, somebody takes over. You know, it's either the private sector or the foreign sector, they take over and growth resumes. And this is what, unfortunately, is not happening. Of course, this Keynesian idea has other difficult issues that it does not address very clearly, which is what do we spend in? What is it that should be the destination of these government expenditures? Of course, Keynes said, who cares? But do we really believe that? I mean, should the government just spend no matter what? And if not, and if we need the governments to spend in profitable public projects, what are they? Where are they? Who can identify them? And of course, these questions you know, leave some of us not unsatisfied and force and make us look for other ideas. Here you see the consolidation in these three countries. Again, remember the 3% growth and stability pact, 3% of public deficit objective. Spain in extreme dire straits, getting back from this Keynesian frenzy of 2009, where Spanish public deficit was 11.2% of GDP. 2011, 2 years later, we were still in 9.4. There's no way Spain will make that 6.3 this year. It's going to be closer to 8%, even though some of these expenditures might be one-off on the bailout of the banking system. Again, here you see France with a much easier path to fiscal consolidation, and of course Italy's public debt is so high that nobody lends them, so enough to run large deficits, so they run small deficits, but that does not mean they don't need to consolidate. When you start running the deficits, then you get the debt problem. And again, here you see three countries in moving with increasing debts as a result of these high deficits, and in different situations. Spain came from a very comfortable 36% of GDP, and now it has more than doubled that rate, and probably that number is an underestimation of true debt of the public sector in Spain. France has increased its debt to GDP ratio by 50%. So you know, the burden and the fiscal drag that this creates on the public sector and on the possibilities of the public sector cannot be disregarded. Keynes, again, used to say in the long run, we are all dead. And that is certainly another, and you know, it's obviously true. But what's going to happen between now and then? You know, how much debt are we going to bear? And in this global economy, basically what we have found out in 2009 is the long run has become shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And it seems like the long run is already today. So you don't, when somebody shoots at you, it's not the lead that kills you, it's the speed. You know, and that's what we're seeing in Europe. We're seeing countries running up debts, piling debts in the public sectors and also in private sectors at unprecedented speeds and placing stress on and crowding out financing. Financing for new growth in the European periphery is dear. It's hard to come by, and of course, as we all know, without financing. It's very, very hard to grow. So, of course, besides this Keynesian spenders, then we have the other side. We have the European front loading of austerity, and it says no. The way to grow is reducing the fiscal drag, cutting expenditures, and maybe raising taxes. So we go into this tax cuts. So we go into this tax cuts mode, and then again here the cry is of course if you yeah, you know, well, that's what we have. So it's not nice. It's not nice. The north of Europe is extremely convinced that this is the way to go, and the south of Europe, of course, France is in between, and the south of Europe is trying to make things a little bit less hard for the southern periphery. But it is true that it's very hard to see how the European project can advance with these very high levels of debt and with these extremely high levels of government deficit in some of these European countries, which are clearly incompatible with a monetary union. So the concern, and we need to get an agreement. Perhaps a solution would be because we have 17 different countries in the euro, to have the North reflate, to have the North expand, do some of these further Keynesian government expenditures and maybe tax cuts, and let the South do the fiscal consolidation. So you have to do the tax cuts. What do you cut? That becomes an issue. Is it going to be superfluous public expending, or is it going to be health and education and pensions and create social revolt in the countries of the Eurozone? Because of course the welfare state in Europe is one of our more cherished, both in the north and in the south. It's one of our more cherished creations, and we need to maintain it. If you don't do the tax cut route, which is politically extremely hard, then of course there is this temptation of raising taxes. The government wants my money, and in Spain today, if you do, okay, in this graph.
Javier, I think we'll have to wrap.
Okay, I have to wrap. All right. So, well, let me just say, I pay 60%. My marginal tax rate, if I include my personal income tax rates and my 21% value-added tax rate, it's 60%. You know what? I was almost about not to come here. It's really not worth it. You know, I can stay home and just go play tennis. All right. So underground economy. But he said I wrap up. The third way to grow. And this one is due to another Nobel Prize, Ed Prescott. He says, if you ask Ed, unlike Paul, Ed does not know how countries grow, but he knows how countries do not grow. And he's telling us what we should do is identify what are the barriers to growth and do something about them. if you take, here I have, since I have to wrap up, just very quickly, I've taken from the World Bank Doing Business report what are the difficulties, some of the measured, identified, and ranked difficulties in doing business in France, Italy, and Spain. And there in brackets I've put countries in Africa, which are slightly better than Europe. For instance, if you want to register property, you should go to Chad instead of doing it in France, which is 146 out of 185 countries in the report. If you want to protect investors, if you're an investor and you're seeking protection, in Spain is ranked 100, and Malawi, it's 99, so you should go to Malawi. And you get the idea, I mean, and you can look down there, since I have to finish off, the difficulties to growth in Italy that scores over 100 in almost in 5 out of these 11 categories. Spain that scores 2, and France that scores 1. So clearly there is a lot of work to be done in south of Europe in removing many of these barriers, and perhaps that's one of the ways we should go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javier.